Hello, my front-end friends. Custom properties have completely changed how we write CSS, but not enough people are taking full advantage of them. I got a whole bunch of them here, but this is basically what I see people do most of the time is just declare a whole bunch of custom properties like this up in their root and have it for your font sizes, your font weights. People I think are pretty good and understand, setting up good systems like that. And then we use them, right? So using them throughout here to do the stuff I need to do for my font sizes, my weights, and all of these other things. And then they stop there. But when you stop there, you're not taking advantage of what you can actually do with custom properties. And I want to look at a few examples of not advanced use cases for them, but sort of, I guess, intermediate use cases and useful ways that we can use custom properties to take more advantage of the really cool stuff that we can do with them. And so I have this example that I have set up right here that we're going to take a look at with this design that we already have sort of in place. And we're going to be doing a few different things with it to explore how we can use these custom properties that I have right now. And to start exploring these a little bit more, the first thing I want to do is let's set a border on these. So I'm going to say a border of 3 pixels solid lime, just so we can see the border show up on them. But then I don't want to use lime, I want to use one of my custom properties. So then I say it's var, and I can come in with, I have a border color already set up as a custom property. I'm going to say my border 2. It's not the darkest, but it's coming in there. And that's good. It's working. I have that there. But what happens if I want to change my border color on any of these? Because each one of these plans is a little bit different. And if we go and take a look at my index here, I have this as my essential plan. The next one, my plan plus here, and then this last one, my plan ultimate. So if I wanted to change that, I could come in and say that I have my dot plan. We'll do the ultimate first, ultimate, and then I could say that my border color is my var color. Let's just go in with my yellow 400 for now, so I get a yellow coming in, or we'll do the yellow 500 because it'll be a bit brighter. So I get the yellow coming in, but then I also have this icon. It's really hard to see right now, but I have this icon that's in there. And then if I want to change the icon color, I go, okay, well then I have my plan ultimate. I could choose my SVG that's inside of there, and then I could say that the fill is the same color, yellow, 500 in this case. And okay, that's changing, and it's not quite as bright just because I do have that at a lower opacity as well. So if I turn that off, then I can't read my text. So I have that like that. But then maybe I even want to come in and like change my button color, and then, well, that I'm not even sure the best way. I'd have to go look at my button class. So let's look at a better way that we could approach all of this to make our lives a lot easier. So I'm going to keep this selector here, but I'm actually going to take this off. And I'm going to come up here where we have this border color set up. And I could say that this is like a good starting place, but I want to open the door to be able to use something different. So to be able to do that, what we're going to do is in my variable here, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do plan color, comma, and then var, and choose this one here. And this looks a little bit weird. So you know what, to start with, let's even remove this one and put Dodger blue to see what's happening. And we can see that we have the Dodger blue showing up on all of them, because when the browser is looking at this, it gets to my plan, it gets to the border, and it goes, okay, 3 pixels solid. Var plan color, I can't find this anywhere. The plan color does not exist anywhere here. And because it doesn't exist, I can't find it anywhere. This is my fallback value, and I'm going to use this value instead. Now, in this case, I don't want it to use Dodger blue. I had a default border color that I'd like it to use. So I'm going to say that this is going to be my color border 2 is going to come in here instead. So the fallback is that default border color that I have. And then what I can do is I can come on my plan ultimate and just say that my plan color is, let's say, Dodger blue for now. I can say Dodger blue here, and then that one will change to Dodger blue. Now this isn't fully taking advantage yet, but hopefully maybe it's showing you something cool we can do there. Of course, though, I can point this to a custom property. So I have my color, and I'm gonna say pink 500 this time, because that's another one of my colors, and now the pink has come in. But if I come and take a look at my index here, let's go, or my HTML file, I should say, I have my plan icon. So I could do, oh, maybe I want that same thing to come into there. So I could say that this is the dot plan icon, the fill, because it's an SVG, so we use a fill on that, is going to use my plan color as well. All right, so I already have this set up, so let's just remember that and go find that one here where I have a fill. I never even set up a fill. So let's set it up here. Fill is going to be my var, And we could say that this is my plan color, but maybe we have a plan icon again that's not being used somewhere else. So we could create a fallback here, and we could say it's red or something else, but we could have a fallback for the default value of it. And if that's not used, then it will get that color that we want it to get right here. So it's starting to get more interesting. I'm not going to put red here necessarily. I'd probably put a more realistic fallback, or it could even just be a black or something. So we have, it's visible at least, which would be the default value on an SVG fill, I think. But we'll leave it like that for now. But we can see that one is coming in. And there's the button that I want to handle as well. We'll come back to the button in a second though, because that one's going to take a little bit more work because the button isn't necessarily part of this system. So we'll see how we can handle that in a second. But let's just come here and come in. We had the first one is my essential plan. So essential. My second one here was my plus plan. And then we're just going to do this was, I think, a green and a yellow were my other colors. So we can come in with those. And then we're already starting to get a little bit of theming and cool stuff coming in here that I think is looking pretty good. And this is what I really like about taking this approach, is having one thing that can actually go and impact multiple things, but only working with it locally instead of being focused on the global scope. It can be really, really useful. And as I said, we can even have components that aren't really part of this system. They could be something that could be used anywhere, like my button, and have the same type of thing being used there. So let's go find my button selector, which is going to be, conveniently enough, right here. And I'm doing some traditional custom property stuff here. But then when it gets to the background color, which I haven't declared yet, what I could do is come on these, and I'm going to put them at the top, but you could really put this anywhere. Or I could say this would be my color, and I'd say this is my var button button text, let's say. So it makes it a bit more obvious. And then I could have a fallback here, which would be my var color text 1. And then my background color would be my var button BG color, or we'll do button surface since I was using surface elsewhere, comma var color surface 1. And I forgot to put a semicolon at the end, so it broke everything. There we go. We can see those have come in. And maybe I actually want to switch that. Let's actually switch this to a surface, and this one will go to my text, which is a little bit awkward, but color text like that. There we go. Okay, we can see things now, just so they stand out and we can see them on these backgrounds. I'm going to invert those around. And there we go, they're working. And this is going to make it easy to overwrite. Because one way that I used to create a lot of these was actually to have the custom properties here. So I'd do something like button text is purple, right? And then, or let's make it, yeah, we could do that. And then I could say that my button surface is green. Just really bad color scheme, but I'd come in with those and I wouldn't have these fallbacks here. And text, let's just set this up to show you how I used to do things and I've stopped doing them. Because this is also a locally scoped custom property. And that means it's, we're scoping it to my button. It's not part of the global scope. But then if I want to change these things within another area, for example, within these plans, well then on my plan, if I come in here and I say this is my button text is now yellow, it's not going to change. And the reason it's not changing is because we're going from the plan. So we're starting at this LI. This here, the button color will be yellow, but then it gets to the button and now the button is looking at itself. So the button gets to here and it goes, well, here my button text is purple. So I'm going to go with my purple color because we're overwriting it at a more local area, right? So it's not inheriting this value anymore. That's getting overwritten by what we have here. And there's a few different ways that you can actually approach this type of thing. So I really do find the easiest thing to do is remove these from here. Now you can see the yellow is actually coming through, but you don't want to have a time where there's no fallback. So that's why having the, let's just for now, I'm just going to write black and we can do a comma white here just to have something in place. So now this yellow is actually overwriting it because this is acting as the default value. And then in situations where I do want to overwrite it, I can do that on a more local thing without having to select the button itself. I can just declare it within my plan or whatever the thing is that I need it to be on, and I can overwrite things. So it makes it much easier and much more robust by setting things up with default values and then having these sort of opened things that we can dive into, to grab into, and to make modifications on. So here, I wouldn't actually necessarily change these other than to say that on all of my plans, the button color is going to be my var plan color. Hit save, and sorry, that was my button text, I should say. And then the text color of each one is changed. And then maybe I could come in with my button surface is going to be my var. We could do this as my color surface 1. And you just got to spell surface correctly. And there we go. I have the 3 buttons, and I'm going to switch that over to a 2 just so we can see it a little bit more clearly. Maybe not the best color scheme, but we have these custom buttons set up now within here. And we could take this another step further, and this is another thing I really like being able to do, is that's just for my button. But then what about like hover states and other things like that? And that's where this can become even more powerful. So here, where I can have my button hover and my dot button focus visible, I'm just going to paste this in because it'd be a little bit faster. I can take the same approach where I'm saying a color and a background color again, but I'm just saying now instead of looking for my button text, it's looking for my button text hover, and if it can't find it, it uses this as the fallback. And the background color will be my surface hover, which we don't have, so it has a fallback. And so if I save that, you can see the text is changing to white because the background color is the same, but the text color is switching on this one. So it's going to the white color on those when I'm hovering on top because we're not overwriting those here. And then I could do the same thing where we could say that my button, so again, this is any button that will be inside of this component or this class, text hover can become my var, and we can say this will just be a color of text now, and then my button surface hover can then become my plan color. And just by doing that, now these are all switching, and obviously the contrast of these isn't fantastic, but we could even take this approach a step further within each one of the subcomponents here to set specific things if ever we wanted to as well. So maybe it's working in all the situations except for one of them. So on this one where it's yellow, I could come in and actually modify that as well. We could say the button text hover is actually going to be black, for example. And now that one will be black, whereas the other ones will still be white. So if you do need to overwrite things at a more specific level than you already gotten to, that door is still open. And it just opens up this extra layer of possibilities when it comes to what we can do with our custom properties and the different ways we can create theming like I'm doing now. We can use this for layout features as well and a whole bunch of other stuff. And there's more though. This is a nice little start though, which I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. And one example on how we could even push this to a little bit of an extra layer is here I'm sort of limiting myself a little bit by having the plan color here. So what I could actually do is say this is going to be my plan border color, and then have that fall back to my border too. In this specific situation, you could even have that fall back to, you could have multiple levels of fallback. So I could have that go to my plan color and then something else, but I want to do something a bit different here. So it's going to go back to my fallback that I have there. And then I could even come here and say that my plan hover is the plan border color becomes my var plan color. And now when I hover on top, we're getting it. So we can even transition that. Let's make it look a little bit nicer. Transition my border color, and we'll say, I don't know, 1 second or something, just so it fades in. Looks kind of funky. Maybe that's a bit long, but 0.5 seconds. Let's update that. That looks a little bit better, a little bit more snappy. But what could also be cool here is like, what if we tab into this, we don't actually get it? So just really fast, we can also improve that. This is a bit off topic, but we can do a plan focus within as well. So if somebody tabs in and we're getting focus inside of them, that border color comes with it. So there we go. I think that looks pretty cool. I think it's a nice example of how we can sort of separate things and still with just single selectors, like my single selector here where I'm setting up my plan color is getting the focus state of my plans. It's changing the styling of the buttons. It's changing the focus state of the style of the buttons and the hover state of those and everything else. So we get one thing that all of a sudden can start getting into all these sub pieces that are in there. And to step things up even more from here, another thing we can do is register our custom properties, which now has baseline support. It's in all browsers. And it opens up possibilities that were impossible before. And to show this, what I'm going to do is, let's go on my entire page. So we're going to come all the way up to my body. This is, let's say, our background color. And then I'm going to add in a background image here, which is going to be a, we'll do a radial, I'm just writing gradient. Let's do this as a radial gradient. And for now, let's just do red to transparent, parent. See, let's make this a bit more, we'll do the Dodger blue again, Dodger blue, so it's a bit less bright on our eyes. And I'm going to say this is a circle at top, comma. And last thing we'll do here is a min height of 100 viewport block. So there we go. Okay, something like that. We're going to subdue this a little bit. It's kind of way too bright from what I wanted to have, but at least it's there and it's working. But now we're going to do the fun bit, which is, let's say we had the body has. We're going to use some modern CSS for this, and so has, and then we could say dot plan hover. We'll stick with this for now, just to say if I wanted to change this gradient here, and I'm going to do it sort of we're going to do a few different stages of this just to show you how this works and why this is cool. But let's come in here with, instead of Dodger blue, let's make this no, we do want it to change. I'm just trying to think of a dark color that I can't think of any keywords for. We're just going to do lime, and it's going to hurt our eyes a little bit. So now if I come in and I hover on any of the plans, the background changes, right? Cool. So if the body has a plan that's being hovered on, we're changing the gradient. But I don't want it to switch, I want it to transition. So I go, okay, well that shouldn't be so bad. If you know this, you know that it won't work, but we're going to get it to work. But we can do a transition of our background image for, let's just say 1 second, and I don't want to forget my semicolon over here. And now when I hover on, I want it to transition. Why isn't it? And it's because background images can't be transitioned. They're not something that it's able to, and gradients are images with the way CSS works. So it's just not something that we can do. What we want to do is just change this color. So what I'm going to do is actually put this as a variable. I'm going to say this is my body BG. We'll call it body BG, just so we have a name on there. And then what I actually want to do is change the body BG over here. And so here we'll come in and we'll do this way, just so we have it set up of a body BG is my Dodger blue. So it should be exactly the same. But then on hover, we're going to say body BG is, we'll do purple this time. And so now if I come and hover, you can see it's switching there. So this locally scoped custom property, which is set here, is getting changed to the purple over here. And what I want to do now is actually enable this to be able to be transitioned. So what I can do for that is we're going to come all the way to the top. And I'm going to do an at property, which is going to let me register my custom property, which means I can come in with a double hyphen, and it was my body BG. And we're going to say that the body BG has an initial value, and we want it to be Dodger blue. So we'll stick with that, Dodger blue. It's also going to have a syntax, and this is the important part, is that we give these syntaxes, because in doing this, the browser knows what this is. Because a custom property could literally be anything. I could make a custom property 1,000 characters of gibberish. The browser doesn't know. It doesn't know if it's a number. It doesn't know if it's a degrees, a percentage, anything, right? It could literally be anything. And by registering it, we're telling it what the value is. And if it's something like a color that it knows it can actually animate, then it will be able to animate it. So the syntax here is color. I will let you know that the syntax, knowing which syntax to use can be a bit tricky. So in the resources, I'll include a link to the MDM that has a list of all of them, just so if you're looking, because there's a difference between a percentage and a degree and a length and an integer and a number, and there's a lot. And so you do want to look at the syntax. And then the last thing is inherits. And the default for inherits is true, but you can actually make this false. And we'll look at why you might want to make that false, but for now I'm going to leave it as true. In this case, false might actually make sense because body BG should only be on the body. But yeah, we're going to set that up there. And that means I don't actually need this locally scoped version anymore. Actually, we do need the inherits of true because I'm not declaring it locally. So now it's still going to work, and it's still going to be blue because this body BG is going, instead of having it declared on the root, it is getting declared here. This is a custom property that I can now use, and it's here and it works. So by having this here, it's looking at that Dodger blue and it's switching. But now what I can actually say is transition my body BG. Because when we do our var like this, we're actually saying, go find the variable of body BG and then replace it with the value that that property points to. In this case, I don't want that. I want to actually, like, we just do the double hyphen here without the var around it, because this is what I'm transitioning that property. Just like here, you might transition your height or your color or whatever it is. I don't want to transition the color. I don't want to transition the background image. I want to transition the custom property being the keyword there, of body BG. And now when I hover on top, the gradient actually transitions. So that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Now there is a limitation in how this works, and there's a couple workarounds, but I just want to show you, because like you might be going like, oh, I want to pass this yellow plan color down to the body. So I'm going to cut this from here and bring it down just so we can see everything at the same time, and talk about one of the limitations of custom properties while we're here. So let's bring this in, and instead of purple here, you might think, well, could I use my var plan color? And if I hit save on this, it's not actually going to work. And let's put a fallback here of like red. And it's going to go to the red color when I hover on top. And you may be going, well, why isn't it using a plan color? Plan color exists. But plan color doesn't exist on the body. Plan color exists on the plan, and it's locally scoped. Remember, we declared these locally on purpose because we want to easily be able to manipulate them and change them, but they only inherit inwards. They do not inherit outwards and change that way. And that's where, even if we have on the body, if we had the plan color is purple, let's just say, when I hover on top, it's still going to, like, this plan at this scope, the plan color is still purple, even though on this smaller scope, the plan color is changed. And there's not really a way to pass that back outside of where we are. So that's a really important limitation of what we have when we have custom properties. So of course, one option here would just be that you could set this up for each individual one. So you could say that when it's the plan has plan essential hover, then you're setting it up for the green color, so it's the same thing coming on. So when you hover on that one, it gets that color. Now we're way exaggerated with the colors that we're using here, but just to say, you'd actually have to set it up individually for each one of them. So just one of the really important things there with the limitations of custom properties, when we go in, that's fine. Things will inherit inwards. They will not expand outwards. And the way that the scoping of custom properties works, sometimes you end up in these little tangled things that feel like they should work, and they just don't quite get all the way there. I did mention one more thing that I wanted to talk about, which was the inherits, and sometimes how you might want this to be false. So for a lot of things, the true does make sense on this, but where you might not want to, I have this other example, and this is a code pen, so I will put a link to this in the resources if you want to play with it. Where right now I have this layout right here, and you can see it's 3 columns and it stacks when we get narrow enough. And the way that's working is I'm using container queries for this, and it's all done with this call count here. So call count, call count, call count. So depending on how many columns I want, basically. It's nothing too complicated in how I'm using it. And we can see here where I have my grid columns, my data call count is set to 3. Now let's say I came and I set the same thing up here, where I set this to 2 on the outside, because I want to have a 2-column layout over here, which is fine, but it breaks my layout here, where this should actually be stacked. This shouldn't be 2 columns, because this is based on a container query, and a container query is looking at the size of the parent, and these ones should be stacked, and then when it gets to a large enough size, eventually I should get 3 columns if ever there's enough room. But instead I just always have 2. And the reason for that is, right now, my call count here is being inherited into this child here, because custom properties always inherit. And that's really annoying. So this is where we could fix this by coming up and using our at property. And it would be my call count. And for that, we can do an initial value. In this case, I guess a 1. I don't know what I would put for the initial value. We're going to put a 1. We're going to say that the syntax is a number, because we could probably use integer as well. I don't know. We'll put number because I think that will work. And then the last thing we're going to do is an inherits of false. And as soon as we say the inherit is false, that means I'm passing the 2 columns into this outer one, but it doesn't get passed into the inner one that's here. And that works the way that I thought it would, where we should just always have, it's always stacking because the container that it's inside of doesn't have enough room. And if we go and find that one, that was this one here, so this section, let's just duplicate it. I'll copy that whole section and bring it outside all the way down at the bottom of my screen. So there it is down here. So here it's still working the way it should, where it goes from stacked to 3, but this other area where it's not getting wide enough just stays as 1 instead, and we don't want it to inherit what's happening on the parent, which just gets in the way and can be really annoying. So I hope that's opened up a few ideas and different ways that you can use custom properties in your projects. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.